Our life has been completely changed since our daughter's death.
It was in the sweat lodge where it all went wrong. Hot rocks doused with water, creating steam and temperatures well past 100 degrees.
His instructions on the 5th day before they go into that sweat lodge, he's telling them the signs of heat stroke were monikers of success. There was a doctor in 2008 who had told his staff that if he continued to do this, he would kill somebody. He revived, I believe, 3 people the year before. The year before that, 1 person had been revived. In 2007, someone had permanent brain damage and was convinced that it was his fault, that he didn't believe enough. He knew that there was danger involved in this, but he is either doesn't care or is delusional.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Throwback Thursday. Today we're talking about the wannabe Tony Robbins, who got 3 people killed in what was one of the worst self-help industry tragedies of all time. And today we are talking to the mother of one of the victims because this story needs to be told. So far, we've heard lies, we've heard narcissism, we've heard from the psychopaths involved, but we haven't really heard from the true victims. So that's what this episode is all about. Welcome to Throwback Thursday. Guys, this is all about, by the way, welcome to the $10 million studio. This is all about learning from the lessons of the past, right? This is what Throwback Thursday is about. Talk about scammers from old to learn lessons for today. And that's exactly what we're doing. Guys, this whole episode's being made because I heard about James Arthur Ray. If you guys don't know who this guy is, he was one of these self-help guys a la Tony Robbins. You know, he was like that type. He was trying to be a mix of, several different gurus at once, like a little bit of Deepak Chopra.
Your greatest spiritual calling is to find your purpose in this lifetime and to pursue it and to do it with excellence, to fall so in love with what you do and so in love with what you're a part of that the lines blur.
And a little bit of Tony Robbins, like a little bit of the spiritual, a little bit of the wealth, all that kind of stuff. And he was trying to rise to the top of the seminar circuit by any means necessary. Now, in 2009, 3 people died at his hand. Or I should say, because of the things he set up. He set up a sweat lodge challenge, or, it was part of a spiritual warrior journey, retreat, whatever, that cost a lot of money. People came thinking that this man is, responsible. He's someone you can trust. And eventually that trust was betrayed when 3 of them died. James Arthur Ray was sentenced for negligent homicide, and he later got out after 20 months. He got a CNN documentary out of it. And in that documentary, again, this is the reason I'm making this video. In that documentary, they interview James Ray. They interview James Ray's family members. But you know who they don't interview? You know who they don't talk to? Are the family members who we're going to talk to today of the people who died in that sweat lodge. And I think it's so important. I'm often accused, Stephen, you only show one side of the story. No, this industry shows one side of the story. These documentaries show one side of the story because that's what sells. Having someone on who lost their daughter doesn't sell the same way talking to some narcissistic, and by the way, I'm not a psychologist, this is just my opinion, some narcissistic guru sells. So without further ado, we're going to talk to the mother because right now James Ray Arthur is back. He's back on the seminar streets, right? He's back selling stuff on YouTube. He wants to get you in. This is after he got convicted for this. He's going back to selling. And I wanted to hear from the mother and tell the full story on what happened in those days.
Our life has been completely changed since our daughter's death. I had gone with her to a James Ray event in March of 2009. I understood why she was taken with him. I think his teachings resonated with her. She made an investment. She felt like she was investing in her future.
How much was that?
It was almost $10,000. And she never told me before she signed up because I know I'm cheap. She would have, she knows she would have gotten some pushback from me on that one. We were so blown away that Kirby died. There were 60 people in that sweat lodge tent, which was the culminating activity of a 5-day retreat with James Arthur Ray. We couldn't understand what had really happened because she was strong and she was not suggestible. You know, as her mom, I can tell you, she came out knowing what she wanted. You know, so, and the more I thought about this, the more I kept thinking, James Ray, I believe, had gotten to a point in his career where he corrupted himself over his love of power and money. This sweat lodge was not done in the Native American tradition. It was set up like a heat challenge. My daughter responded to challenge. James Ray said throughout that week, you must play full on. And Kirby was the kind of person who played full on from the time she was born.
This is a common thread, by the way. This idea of you come to these retreats, they tell you you're going to push yourself, you're going to do things you never thought possible. Maybe you'll even do a fire walk with Tony Robbins. Maybe you'll push it even farther. James Ray always wanted to push it farther. So this kind of stuff is not a one-off in this industry. This is a recurring problem where these life coaches, these gurus, put themselves in positions of power with absolutely no oversight.
And the more we learned about what happened in those 5 days, that led us into really looking at more of what goes on in the self-help industry. And we felt a moral responsibility to tell people there's danger out there.
You know, one thing that he said that absolutely made me want to crawl out of my skin was he called it heroic, the deaths of these 3 people.
You know, I think it's really important for me to communicate that James Shore, Liz Newman, and Kirby Brown were heroes. They're not victims. They really believed in something.
As a mother, how do you respond to somebody who's saying that, number one, your daughter somehow chose this?
Putting them in a position of subservience and shaming people who didn't agree with him, so that people were afraid to talk, encouraging no sleep, and then isolating them so that they couldn't process some of what they were doing with each other either.
I think it's really worth pausing here and taking a look at some of the extreme tactics that go on at some of these strange and unregulated retreats, right? Where people are supposed to be improving themselves. It can border on the very, very strange. Take a listen.
It got even more strange, she says, when James Ray organized a game about death based in part on the movie The Last Samurai.
James, his role was God. So he wore white robes and he was God, and no one was allowed to talk to God.
You were dressed up as an angel of death.
I was an angel of death, and I had black lipstick on, black around my eyes. You know, we all had Grim Reaper costumes on.
What was the point of this game?
I'm not, to live with honor, to die with honor, maybe.
So by the time we get to his instructions on the 5th day before they go into that sweat lodge, he's telling them that the signs of heat stroke were monikers of success. That when they felt disoriented, when they felt nauseous, when they thought they were going to pass out, these are all signs that they're on the verge of a breakthrough, and just push through.
This had already happened because I've heard him on interviews, multiple interviews, saying, you know, we didn't know the event was dangerous. Basically, we now know, but we didn't know before these deaths.
And I am fully responsible. It was my event. It was my team. It was my choice to do what we know now as a dangerous exercise.
There was a doctor in 2008 who had told his staff that if he continued to do this, he would kill somebody. He revived, I believe, 3 people the year before. The year before that, one person had been revived. In 2007, someone had permanent brain damage and was convinced that it was his fault, that he didn't believe enough. So he knew that there was danger involved in this, but he is either doesn't care or is delusional.
This disgusts me because one thing he says is he characterized, I believe it was you he was talking about, as his number 1 critic. And I'm thinking, yeah, you don't say. it's your number one critic, you jackass. I mean, excuse my French, but it is so upsetting to me that he's still out there pitching as if he's taken accountability. He keeps saying, I've taken responsibility. I picked up his ebook. The first thing is, I've taken responsibility.
Sometimes people have a tendency, particularly the trolls and haters, to misinterpret that I'm trying to sidestep responsibility, and I will never do that. And as the leader, I'm responsible. You know, when something goes sideways in your business, there's only one person in the crosshairs.
I don't see that, but then again, I'm not a victim in this case. You are. Do you see that he's taking responsibility?
No, not at all. He keeps saying, I'm sorry this happened. Well, I'm sorry this happened too. This is my daughter that I have to live without. He served 20 months in prison, and we've been serving a sentence for over 11 years without Kirby. If he had gone to prison and came out saying, I now realize that the mind control tactics that I used, that what I did without proper knowledge, I've learned, the whole thing would have turned out differently. But instead, he says, these people, I think in the documentary says, I'm the only person in history who had to go to jail and lose my freedom and lose my business because of other people's decisions. It wasn't her decision to die because she was unconscious in that tent and could not have left. And he knew she was unconscious and did nothing. James Shore pulled out someone who was unconscious right in front of James Ray at the end of the 7th round, saved her life, went back in the tent to get Kirby because he was next to her, said to James Ray, we need help back here. And he's, for the 3rd time, said, we will take care of it at the end of the round. And he walked out, and at the end of that round, James Shore and Kirby Brown were dead.
James Shore was trying to save your daughter's life.
Yes. They were found holding hands, and he had been saying to her, keep breathing, Kirk, keep breathing. This man heard that. He was like 10 feet away from them.
Frankly, I knew as much, if not more, about them than some of their nearest and dearest friends and loved ones. And so it broke my heart, man. I mean,
because now he's the victim of this. That's how he's portraying himself. And when I sat and watched Enlighten Us, to watch him be on stage crying because he lost his 3 good friends, that made me want to throw up. Because he left them in the tent.
Yes,
never looked back when he knew that they were.
And they also paid him $10,000. They were his clients, and that's it.
I found out that my daughter was dead by a trooper who came to my door to inform me. He didn't call me. No one from his organization called me. I didn't hear from this man till 5 days later.
What did he say when he what did he say when he first talked to you?
How are you? I said, I'm in shock. And he said, I am too. I can't understand how this could have happened. And I said, cooperate with the local police who are investigating this so that they can help you understand what happened. He said, I am. And we had been talking to the local police, so we knew he hadn't.
Yeah, didn't he run? I thought he ran away from the crowd. Like he famously fled.
He left in the middle of the night. He never spoke to anybody.
There was an allegation that you left the scene pretty quickly and just disappeared. Is that true? And if so, why did you leave so fast?
You know, Piers, I wish I could say that I was enlightened enough to not have any impulse for self-preservation. I'm not.
And what to me was even more egregious, he had a conference call with a number of the participants the next Wednesday. This happened on a Thursday night. The next Wednesday, there was a conference call with a number of participants. And in that call, someone said, well, there was a channeler there who said Kirby and James were having so much fun outside of their bodies, they decided not to return. And he did not say anything. And he allowed that to become the myth of what happened. They chose their deaths. It was their time. They chose it.
I think it's disrespectful for them to be portrayed as victims because they really believe in what they're doing. And in life, as an entrepreneur, you've got to be willing to give everything you have. And it's difficult. It's not easy.
The fact that he's still pitching this stuff, he's learned nothing, and he's allowed to just with impunity go out and, he's still the sweat lodge guy, but he tries to use it as, oh, it was a growth opportunity for me. That's how the documentary ends, by the way.
It's an infomercial for him.
He goes, it was a growth opportunity for me, and I hope I can resonate with everyone out there that if I could go through something so traumatic, again, other people dying, that you can maybe learn from my lessons in life. If you could say anything to James Arthur Ray, I mean, there's no way he can ever put these pieces back together. But if there is something, he could do to just close this story, what would it be that you would find to be, that's all you can do? Would it be stopping his practice, shutting down, telling people what he did? Is there anything at this point? What would you tell him?
Well, I think I would tell him that I'm going to continue to tell people the truth of what happened because he hasn't been able to do that. I'm also going to tell him that I forgive him because I'm not going to live with unforgiveness and bitterness and thoughts of revenge for the rest of my life. I'm not going to do that, but that doesn't mean that I trust him or that I trust that he would keep other people safe because he hasn't learned anything from what happened. And what I would hope for him is that maybe someday he will learn what he really did and somehow be able to understand that. Get out of the self-help industry where, you're a phenomenal salesman. Okay, so go somewhere else. But in this industry where people, you're dealing with their emotional health, you're dealing with their physical health, go away. Just go away. We will continue to have Seek Safely, the goal of which is to empower the seeker, to help people understand, give them tools so that they can have a more efficacious journey, a safer journey as they try to improve themselves, because we're always looking to improve ourselves. It's part of the human condition, it's part of the human thirst. We're always going to do that. And people do that in lots of different ways. But people need to know that there's danger in this industry, even though there are great people in this industry, and how to discern the difference between those who would harm you and those who will really help you.
Well, I'm totally inspired by you. Even the fact that you could forgive this man is simultaneously unfathomable, but also so, I don't know if inspirational is the right word, but I'm very touched by your graciousness and, your unbelievable heart for people who are out there seeking. You and your husband have set up basically a nonprofit 501c3 that is called seeksafely.org. You can go check it out right now. It's all about seekers who want to find their way through this kind of thorny underbrush of the self-help industry. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing this experience with so many. I hope you guys go check out the website, seeksafely.org, and also that book. I'll link that below. Thank you for coming on and sharing your experience. I hope that others can learn from your daughter.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. See you guys. All right, that's it. Let me stop recording and
I know what you mean. This ain't what it seemed. Nothing but a trick, trying to sell me on a dream, but that was where you lost me. Wake up and smell the coffee.